Ready to go? Okay. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Westport Rating District Joint Committee meeting Thursday, 5th of March 2026. We are meeting at 2 p.m. and if I could call for any apologies, we've got one from. Are there any others? Okay, move to accept those apologies. Moved by Councillor Rutherford, seconded by Councillor Cole. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Call for any declarations of interest in the agenda items. No declarations of interest. Okay, thank you for that. Now today we have in the public forum we have one speaker, Kevin Smith. I think most people know Kevin. And Kevin, if you'd like to kick it off, you've got 5 minutes. If you grab that microphone, Kevin, from up there and put it on the table, up behind Alan. And it's the same drill. If you press the right-hand button, then everybody online will hear too. Now, Kevin's got a few photos that will come up on the screen that he will talk to. They're just being put up for reference only.
Is that going on, Kevin? You might see we're ready for a second slide. I think it's off, but let me just leave this one.
There you go. Thanks. I'm hoping this works. Yes, it does. I can hear myself. Afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chair, committee members, staff. My article today was going to be about debunked an article in the paper the other day, but I won't have a photograph to talk to, so we can skip over that. Basically, rather than talk about the article, I will be talking about the changes unique to Westport regards the flooding situation, in my view. So we're all different. We all have different experiences, different views. I've been here for a long time. I've seen the floods. I've seen the flood history. So I'm not going to talk about Chris's article or the Palmerston Street flooding, but they do lead into what my point is every flood has been different. And we can't compare the 1926 flood to the 1970 or indeed the later ones for various reasons. This town, the first floods were in the late 1860s into the 1870s, to the point where the town moved. We no longer have the same Westport we did back in those days. That was Gold Town. That finished 1873. It was all over. They moved the town to the current site in 1873. So any flooding history has to be after that. Well, we've only had the major floods 1926 to where we are now. So if we get I was going to do one about the early dredge activity on the bar, which is from about 100 years ago. But when you see the slide, you'll see the differences from 100 years ago. This is more recent. And what we're seeing there is the sand right out to the end of the tip. But that mole's been extended twice since the previous photos, extended in the 1920s and again in the 1960s. So if we go back to the building, that's probably where it was back in 100 years ago. So we're gaining land. So when I hear people, this committee talk about rising water, sea level rise, etc., yes, the world might have a problem, but Westport's unique. We've got a land problem. We're actually gaining land. We'll try another slide if we could, thanks. So we're running up to 5 minutes, so we've got a slide coming up. So what are we saying is we've seen changes on the overflow and the Buller River. The overflow basically was discovered in 1872 flood after Dudley Dobson first mentioned it. He said it was very fortunate that the water went around the base of the terraces. It saved the water going out the Buller River and flooding the town as it was then. Okay, this one here, we're talking about the build-up and how we're gaining land. That's the photograph of the first town of Westport, right there in the foreground. right where those boats are. That was pretty much the CBD. Over where Gladstone Street is, that was the merchant area, the shops. So that was basically the shoreline back then, the first town of Westport, and it continued right across to where Snodgrass is now. So all that land in front is gained, we've gained it. Another slide, please. Okay, so I spoke about the entry to the overflow and how things have changed. That's Organs Island, and that shows the farming and the impact the farms had. But nevertheless, the water comes across the whole island when the overflow operates. So it comes across the whole island, goes under the railway line in the foreground, and then into the overflow. So the lower line, again, another man-made change. Another slide, please. This is what I'm really concerned about. This is the Orawati estuary, and this is as a result of the man. You know, from our harbour works, we've gained that spit out close to the sea there. And what it's doing is that's growing eastwards, but at the same time, it's making the Orawati estuary get longer and longer and longer. That's our overflow channel. So we've got one problem in that the overflow has got further to go. We've got a second problem in that it's becoming like a lake. And that's where a lot of the damage came from in one of those cyclones. I can't recall which one, Cyclone Faye, perhaps. Yeah. Another slide, please. That's an indication of the land we've gained. The black line is where the shore was, first town of Westport. The red is basically the first town. Yeah, all that in 150 years. And the sand is out to the end of the tips. Okay, another slide, please. That's the dredges out in front of the tips back in those days, back in the early 20s. So you can see there's a lot more water. The scene has changed completely. It's nothing like what we've got now, what we're continuing with. Another slide, please. And that's a photograph showing the sand out to the end of the tip. So I'll cut it short at that. That's the 5 minutes. Basically what I'm saying is we hear talk about the stormwater in Westport and the likes, you know, the man-made changes there, but the whole environment, the whole geographical environment of Westport is unique. Our littoral drift, our harbour moulds are generating all this land, and it's not going to stop. We're going to keep on gaining land for the next decades. And if you're planning, you know, works into 50 years' time, you're going to have to factor that in.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay. Are there any questions for Kevin? No questions? Must have done a good job, Kevin. Thanks very much for coming and speaking. Okay, thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. There are no late items, Basil. Okay, thank you. And when I started, I forgot to welcome our friends from the West Coast Regional Council staff and also our community reps and also Ellen from the media. Okay, just to move on then. Confirmation of minutes, the Westport Rating District Joint Venture meeting minutes of the 29th of September. The recommendation that confirm the minutes of the Westport Rating District Joint Committee meeting 29th of December 25 are true and correct record. Anybody like to move that? Councillor Cole. Anybody? Okay, Councillor Pat Bradley. Do we call you count? You're not a councillor, Pat, are you? Okay, Representative Bradley. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the action list. The action list will be addressed by Michael Beagle. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so we're starting off in action one. It's the recommendation for the prudent reserve. Now, as we all know, the scheme is still under construction, so we haven't actually set a reserve yet. We'll be doing that in the further years rather than today. So it's an ongoing action, but won't be addressed until further into the program. Action 2, so it's the answers to Paul Reynolds, that we've got an outstanding letter to Mr. Reynolds. We sent an email in September of 2025. It's still ongoing that we're responding back to. Well, I do apologise that we haven't finished that. Action 3, to Margaret, that's the letter's been sent in October 2025, but that action is closed. The action 4, the tour was approved by the council, so that one is complete as well. Action 5, so I'll read this out. So raised with DIA a concern regarding monies transferred from planting of Organs Island to the Westport Steering Group Contingency Fund and seeking this reconsideration. So that's down to Darryl, that's your action. Oh, so raised with the DIA concern with, raised with DIA concerning monies transferred from planting of Organs Island to the Westport Steering Group Contingency Fund and seek that this is reconsidered.
Yes, unfortunately, we had a number of goes through the steering group at trying to get that actioned, and that didn't yield a very positive result. So the money that was earmarked for the purchase of Organs Island, and noting that we don't need now to purchase it, but that money could have been used for the protection works and potential planting or flood banking at Organs Island, has been transferred under a unilateral decision by the Department of Internal Affairs into the general contingency for the project. So that money is not lost to the project, it's just not sitting in the Organs Island budget. As the project progresses, I'll keep this committee updated with Organs Island, what associated costs and how we're going to control that overflow and how those costs might be met. But the good news is that the money's not lost to the project; it's just sitting in the contingency. Thanks.
So Darryl, this one's also for you to arrange a workshop prior to Christmas with the new joint committee regarding Westport Special Rating District.
Thank you. So that wasn't arranged before Christmas. We tried, but it took place last month between both councils. Thanks.
And the last one is action item 7. So that's presenting a paper outlining the schemes of development, ownership and management to the first committee meeting, which is now after the election. So I've got a verbal update to this. So the action was to present a paper outlining the scheme's development. That's still in progress. Since the last meeting, the program's governance and accountability settings are in transition, including DIA arrangements operating via the NIFCO, that's the National Infrastructure Funding and Financing. The disestablishment of the Resident Westport Steering Group at the end of 2025. So with government oversight moving to West Coast Regional Council's formal committee and council process. Because these settings affect how we accurately describe roles, decisions and reporting lines, we do not want to circulate a paper that be overtaken or have misstated responsibilities. So I'll go on to how we're going through things. So if I look at the background between NIFCO and ourselves, the scheme's development was in response to the Westport flood resilience need at the 2022 floods. In mid-2022, West Coast Regional Council and Buller District Council took a proposal to government seeking co-investment as integrated long-term flooding resilient package. Subsequently, the Crown's funding and monitoring arrangements were confirmed with DIA in September 2023, and West Coast Regional Council entered into a funding agreement with that to support that work. The government governance oversight. So in terms of that oversight, West Coast Regional Council is in receipt of the Crown funding and is accountable for the using of that funding and the agreed purposes. Resilient Westport Steering Group was established involving West Coast Regional Council, Bullet District Council, the Runanga or Ngāti Waiwai and relevant Crown agencies to work collaboratively on the program. That steering group was established at the end of 2025. Governance now sits with the West Coast Regional Council through its operations committee and the council decision making with ongoing engagement with Bullet District Council and EWS program partners. A look at the management and reporting. From a management perspective, work is delivered through West Coast Regional Council's program management arrangements with partner engagements through established channels. There are formal accountability settings to central government, including NIPCO and reporting to the funding. Now we have entered into West Coast Regional Council and NIPCO have entered into an arrangement at the end of February 2026. To complete this, we'll circulate a written pack out of session which sets out the historical key decisions, the history, key decisions, roles and responsibility across West Coast Regional Council, Bullet District Council, even the council, the current governance oversights and how to deliver the reporting to how NIPCO operates. That concludes that.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Darryl, too, for your input. Are there any questions? Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so look, I'm a bit disturbed that this wasn't presented in paper form prior to this meeting. Thank you for providing it verbally. However, it's very hard to follow. Yeah, and what you've just explained to us, it's quite a detailed thing. I certainly want to know more about what lies behind it, where we fit in terms of. I mean, I've got no idea. For example, there's been an allocation of funds from central government to undertake much of the capital works. We, as a committee person, I've got no idea whether that's specific. What is the funds allocated to a particular piece of work, you know, from that big bucket, or is it just a big bucket of money that regional council gets to determine how it's to be spent? Obviously, presumably with input from this committee, but there's so much information lacking that I find it difficult to have meaningful input into the committee without having that detailed information in regard to, you know, my role. So hope to see that paper in the short term and the opportunity to have more involvement at the next committee meeting, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Reynolds?
I too would request that report in writing, and it certainly I would have liked to receive it for this meeting. But more important, I object strongly to coming to a meeting here today, have an apology.
Excuse me, Councillor, do you have a question?
I have a question. When will my questions be answered? You had 20 days, starting from the 29th of September, so you're in breach of the statute to provide local government official information.
To apologise for that.
I don't accept it after this period of time.
Councillor? Michael?
We'll commit to giving you that within one calendar month.
I beg your pardon?
One calendar month from now.
It will go to the Ombudsman on Friday if it's not arrived in my email by 5 p.m.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, there being no further questions, the recommendation, go back to the recommendation is receive the actions list and the information noted. Would somebody like to move that? Councillor Cole? Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Jody. Okay, I'll just open the floor for any further discussion. Okay, no further discussion, then we'll take a vote. All those in favour? Those against? Fault? Abstain? Thank you. That motion is carried. The next item is the Chair's report verbal update. And I see there it's optional, thank goodness. I think this is my first meeting of it, but I'd invite West Coast Regional Council Chair, if you'd like to make any comments by way of a verbal update. You may like to mention the meeting that the West Coast Regional Council hosted last month.
Yeah, so we had a, well, I was just talking to me and Russell before, it was very important for us to come and meet with councillors and discuss progress to date. I certainly felt that was a very worthwhile exercise. I think as a consequence of that meeting, there was a lot better understanding on both sides. I understand, so very worthwhile, and obviously it's something we should continue to do to make sure that everybody keeps updated with progress on this journey, because it is a journey that we're both travelling on, and we all want to see a successful outcome. So was very helpful, and thanks to me and Russell and the volunteers hosting us that day and allowing us the opportunity to connect on this particular topic.
Thank you, Colin. And yes, it was very, very helpful. And definitely the West Coast Regional Council for to talk to us about that. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is it is recommended the committee resolves to accept the verbal report. Any further discussion? Councillor Cole.
I think we've got the FAO districts generally once a year, but this is a bit of a different rate district. It's such a dynamic one that's going on. All of my rate district intervals, I think, 4 months instead of ending at this stage until we get the thing. And recognizing that that money is still planning stage. Like you said, say 4 months, 4 months, like that.
So would you like to put a motion to the floor?
Is that idea? I'll put a motion that's protocol.
Yep. Unless somebody correct me that it's not. Off you go. So. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll move the chair's report first. Okay, and
Response to
chair's report. Okay. How do we handle that, Rosa? So that's something that
Just to clarify, I think the terms of reference or the joint agreement does say at least annually. I've got a feeling there's 2 booked in for this year already, so that's 6 monthly. So I can double check that, but that's my understanding. So I just wanted to give you that context, but I guess the motion, whether it's even 6 monthly is enough. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Well, let's move on to chair's report and then come back to Chris. Councillor Rutherford, did you want to say something? Come back to it. Okay, so if there's any further discussion on the chairman's report, okay, all those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Rutherford, did you?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, just in response to Chris's suggestion, you know, I'm not actually comfortable with a 4 monthly. There'll be matters that'll come up that I'm including a matter that I'll bring up shortly. We don't know what we don't know moving forward. I believe that there'll be issues come forward in relation to this committee and the work being undertaken by regional council that may require governance input from this committee within 4 months and more than once in the next 12 months. I don't think it's cut and dried. So I just want to say that I want to keep our options open, that if we feel we want to call a meeting of this committee, that we can do so.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Darryl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd just like to clarify, because I've heard already this afternoon some questions around what this committee is. I just want to clarify that the governance of the flood protection project sits with the West Coast Regional Council. They are the governance over the project. The joint committee, this joint committee, as all the joint committees for the major towns across the West Coast, being Westport, Greymouth, Hokitika, and Franz Joseph, are advisory bodies and make any recommendations or raise any matters back to the regional council as the governance. So they're like a community-facing body that hears information and makes either recommendations or seeks further information from governance and the staff who support the governance, being the regional council. Councillor Cole is correct that the Westport Joint Committee is the unusual one in that all the other ones, Grey, Hoki, Hokitika, and Franz Joseph, are already built schemes, although they are going through upgrades to those schemes. The Westport one is a totally new scheme, and we're at the beginning almost of that construction and the build. I'm completely guided by this committee of how often you would like to meet and be provided information, and would also say that if there is a very significant issue that any member is seeing or that the governance is seeing, and we need to meet to consider that, we can do it at any time. So be guided by you, Mr. Chairman, and the Joint Committee, but hopefully that background assists. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the explanation. Lou, look, I fully accept that governance lies with regional council, and I might have sort of misused some terms there. But as the front face for our community, I believe this joint committee does have a role in advising governance about matters, and I have some serious concerns in regard to affordability as we move forward. I won't raise that right at the moment, but I will later in the meeting. And if issues that seem to matters of affordability for our community that need to be raised with governance, then I think we need to have the opportunity to come together as a committee, discuss those, and then advise the governance or West Coast Regional Council accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Representative Bradley.
Thank you. I would just like to ask in relation to what we saw in the action plan where a new joint committee meeting regarding Westport Rating District Committee had a workshop. Well, Jody and I weren't invited to that, and yet we're on the rating committee. Now, in light of what Darryl said about the overriding structure of governance, does that mean that the two councils meet, or the regional council meets and decides, presents what their decisions are to a rating committee? To me, that seems like a fait accompli. And so we're not party to the information. And so I'm just a bit concerned. Are we on the committee or not?
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
I'd just like to say, Pat, that it's a pretty brave council that will not take the advice given by this rating district. There has to be we've been reminded many, many times that it would be a brave council that would reject a recommendation from this rating district. Although you might not be able to have the final say, you virtually do, because it's there has to be a damn good reason for rejecting the motion or the recommendation of that rating district.
Thanks, Councillor. Darryl, perhaps you'd like to respond to the briefing.
Thanks. Yes. Look, thanks, Pat. Could I just clarify for you that the meeting that we held last month was just purely a meeting between West Coast Regional Council and Buller District Council, so council to council, or the new elected members. So it wasn't a meeting with the joint committee in any way, which is this committee, including yourselves. And then secondly, I don't want to be presenting fait accomplis at this committee. I really want to engage with you, and we need to make sure that going forward, that's how we structure it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Just one more, councillor Reynolds, and then we'll move on.
And Pat's question, of course, brought to mind my question raised in September about how all these different bodies all fit together, which highlights the absolute lack of information being transmitted by West Coast Regional Council to the Westport people regarding the walls that they're going to be having to spend an awful lot of money on. We've had pseudo consultation meetings in Snodgrass, Carter's Beach, and others that I don't know of, where our press has been excluded. This was the face of West Coast Regional Council in the Buller, fronting up to the Westport people who are going to have to pay for the walls. And meetings 4 months apart is too far apart for my liking. This needs to be much closer. There needs to be more information, and we certainly don't want to wait from September until March and then be told it's still going to be another month.
Thank you,
Just
councillor.
to work out the.
Thank you, councillor Reynolds. Daryl, would you like to respond to that?
Look, I'll make one point. We had overwhelming support at the Snodgrass meeting and at the Carter's Beach meeting. That meeting was between West Coast Regional Council and Buller District Council and the affected property owners, and they did not want media present. And that was a very strong decision from both of those groups of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more, Paul. Councillor Reynolds.
In response to that, the media was excluded from the Snodgrass meeting. I spoke to the media, Lee Scanlon in particular. She was waiting outside in the car at the meeting when CEOs Mason and Maven wanted to exclude the press. I asked the meeting, do you want the press here? There was no one that objected.
Okay, thank you, councillor.
There's another point to that. The Snodgrass meeting that Mr. Lew has said the people were in favour of, what was presented to the Snodgrass people was a solution to them, to save them from flooding. And the solution to flooding, they knew before that meeting that where they planned to put the walls on my property, if they had no authority to put them there, no one from the council had approached me, no one had spoken to me. I read in the paper that there's no money for.
Okay.
I want to absolutely reject that allegation.
Okay, order.
There was reported in the paper that there's no money to buy people out.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
walls on my property can't be built. So
Okay,
therefore to tell
I'm going to have to
people a solution for them
Paul.
didn't exist.
Thank you. Just one final response from Daryl in response to that.
I just want to reject that allegation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, let's return to the agenda. Okay, we're up to item number 9. We're still on reports. 9.1, the Westport Flood Protection Scheme project update. Michael, please.
I've got 3 colleagues. I've got Tom Hopkins, who's been with the program. Can you use your microphone, please?
So I'll start again. Sorry. Tom Hopkins, the program manager, will deal with the first report. Chantal Mills will do the financial report, and then I've got Paulette Borchfield who will deal with the annual work report. So, Tom, do you want to approach it, please?
Thanks, Michael, and good afternoon, committee members. For those of you who new to me, when I know what my role is, I'm the capital program manager for West Coast Regional Council. So I oversee the capital program that we have underway across all our major schemes, between Friends through Westport. Got on screen, I've got Peter Blackwood, who has spoken to this report in the past. I'm going to take the report as read, but just speak to a few highlights. And then if we have any technical questions that committee members might want, and Peter's here. All right, since our last report to the previous committee in September last year, there's been a few highlights to report on. The first one is that the transfer of land at Morgan's Island from Linz through the dock and then onward by investing the regional council, that's now complete as of last month. That's now there under the management of the West Coast Regional Council is for flood protection purposes. The final 10 metres of the bund at Cats Creek is constructed, so that's now that section of the scheme complete. Consent has been granted and a contract awarded for the placement of rock adjacent to O'Connor Home. And we've lodged the consent application for Upper Buller and Carters. And a variation to the funding agreement between the regional council and the IA has been granted, which effectively transfers the remainder of the Crown share from DIA to the National Infrastructure Funding and Financing Company, and that occurred on the 10th of February. So behind all of that, there's been a huge amount of geotechnical investigation, reporting, optioneering, feasibility studies, preliminary design, and consenting activities. And alongside that, as all that information now comes to us as a project team, we've been undertaking a review of project scope and cost, and working through a range of options, value engineering options, to see if we can, what's changed since the original business case, and then what our options are going forward. Okay, and that's a normal part of any infrastructure project. As you gain more information, you have a milestone where you stop your review, look at where you're at and what you might need to change going forward. So we're right in the middle of that process at the moment, and look forward to bringing the outcome of that process both to this committee and to council when we're ready to go. And finally, we have added a bit of extra resource to the project team to support the existing team, and look to coordinate our activities and accelerate some of those activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions? Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Tom. And you've raised some of the issues that I'm very concerned about. You mentioned ongoing review to see what can be done, what can be afforded. So clearly, the longer a capital work is delayed, the more likely it is to increase in cost from original estimates. I can't remember exactly when the business case was first put to the government, 22, 23. There would have been estimates done on the total project. I have a great fear that those are it's not going to be sufficient to meet all the original.
Excuse me, councillor. So we're in question time.
Yeah, this is a question.
Okay, thank you.
So given what we know about potential increases in capital works, particularly of the nature that we undertake, and given information we have regarding the conflict in the Middle East, I expect these costs will escalate significantly. My question, therefore, is if we get into a position that the costs blow out, is the intention to not complete work, or is the intention to increase the local share and therefore the implications of rating for our district? Can I have an answer to that, please?
So if that proves to be the case, councillor, then there would be a range of options presented to the committee and to council for committee members to make recommendations to council on.
Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And that's to my earlier raised point that I believe we're probably going to need to have more frequent meetings of this committee as the scope of works go out to tender. You guys find that, gee, we no longer have the full amount of capital required. And I assume that you would then come back to this committee and say, look, we're in a position where we may have to modify what our original plan was.
That's correct, councillor.
Thank you, councillor Rutherford. Thank you, Tom. Councillor Reynolds.
When could we expect a copy of that report in writing?
We'll be over the next six weeks looking to conclude the work we've been doing in that space, and then I would imagine within the following month or so looking to
advise both this committee and council accordingly.
No, the question was the report we just heard orally. When can we expect to see that in writing?
Sorry, what report?
We've just heard an oral report. I'd like it in writing. Can we expect to get it in writing?
The report that I've just spoken to is in your papers.
It's in the papers.
Correct.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
Mr. Chair, we do need to speak to financials as well,
Yes.
and I'll pull Chantal through for that.
Welcome, Chantal.
Good afternoon. Nice to be home. I'll take the finances as read. Highlights are we've split the finances into two. So there's the maintenance part and then there's the loan capital funding part, just to provide everybody with a bit more transparency. And I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Rutherford.
Yes, so look, I don't want to just keep beating a dead horse, but thanks, Chantal. Given what Tom's just told us, at what point can we expect to hear back that, hey, look, if we want to complete the original project as per original design, we're going to have to borrow extra dollars to meet that cost? Will such a report be produced, or is it just going to be as each project has gone out, because it's quite a significant time frame to complete all these capital works and they're bits and pieces, bite by bite? Do you think we'll have a report that says, hey, if we complete all this work, this is going to be the total capital required?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Sorry, that's not a fair question for the accountant on the job. That's really for the design engineers and the project managers. And I think what I would say, again, in relation to that question, which is the same question as was put to Tom, Tom's reply stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Are there any further questions? Okay, so would somebody like to move then that we receive the report, accept the financial statement for the 24-25 financial year? Councillor Cole, do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Representative Bradley. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll pass over to Paulette to do the annual works report.
Thank you. So we're on agenda item 9.3, Westport Rating District Annual Works Report.
So the annual works report, thank you, just covering maintenance of our existing structures. So this annual works report outlines a summary of the work undertaken as part of the annual works program for the 24-25 financial year, including any maintenance. I won't cover capital works and surveys undertaken. And this report details scheduled work for the 25-26 financial year and proposes work required for the 26-27 financial year. So the summary of the maintenance works, just John Philpott and Associates coding for contractors and consultants, but it's the same work. We've got administration, Westport office consumables, travel and accommodation and advertising. And we've got Chris Cole Surveying Limited, which is a credit taken back that was funded out of another fund instead of the rating district. Got some lovely pictures of Cat's Creek. The balance in the rating district account at the beginning of the 26-27 financial year is likely to be approximately 195,000. That does not include any allowance for paying interest or principal for the loans relating to Northern Diamond or Kawakiri Scout. As the scheme is still under construction, the target balance of the prudent reserve for this rating district has not yet been set. A rough estimate, just using the assets that we've got at the moment, would have our prudent reserve at around 120,000, so we'd be sitting above that anyway. So future maintenance works 25, 26. We've got 20,000 put aside to allow for unforeseen asset maintenance. Those existing assets were checked and no with no works foreseen for that financial year. So this is just, that's why it says allow for unforeseen asset maintenance. Proposed rates for the 26-27 financial year is the asset maintenance allowance of 20,000, engineers cost recovery, which was an estimate, 11,100, and infrastructure insurance of our existing assets, 2,172. So total 33,272 and 14 cents. And yeah, council might recommend a total maintenance rate strike, $33,272 and 14 cents.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions, okay. So the recommendation is the report be received and we endorse the recommended maintenance rate strike 26-27 financial year of 33,272, 14 cents ex GST. Would somebody like to move that?
Move, Chair.
Moved by the Chair of the West Coast Regional Council. Do we have a seconder? Representative Bradley. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Paul? Abstain? It's carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, thank you very much. Item 9.4, the 3 yearly applications for the community members to be held 1 year after local elections. And this item was requested by Jody. I understand you're going to give us a verbal update on that, Jody.
Yeah, it was just a thought that I had basically. I mean, all the sort of councillors have to go through an election process to be on something like this. And as a community member, we were selected, and I started out the Westport 2100 group and then progressed into this one. And yes, I feel like I don't, opportunities should be given to other people that might be wanted to be part of it. So I wondered if the best way to do that was that you reapply for the role, and that will give other people the opportunity to put their hand up if they'd like to be part of it, so that once you're in, you're not monopolising it. And I wondered if sort of 1 year after the local election, so there's a bit of continuity with it, so they're not just getting a whole new group on, they've got a bit of history here. So that's what I was thinking.
Thank you, Jody. Are there any questions for Jody? Councillor Rutherford?
Well, it's not a question for Jody, but it's in relation to the general principle, which I don't disagree with at all. But I'd like perhaps Daryl can, fill us in a bit in terms of what regional council are maybe proposing in terms of striking the rate for the capital works, whether it's still intended to possibly widen the scope of the special area, because if that is the case, then I think Jody's point becomes even more relevant, that if it's to include ratepayers currently outside the special rating area, then I think it behoves us to consider community input from those people who may be affected that currently aren't. So I think Jody's got some good points, but I do believe it could be dependent upon what the regional council intends in regard to extending the rating area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jody, for raising the matter. Would you be in favour of perhaps a public meeting being called for the public in Westport to, at that meeting, call for nominations and elect the members at a public meeting?
I don't know what the best way would be. I guess when we went through it before, we put an application in, so it would probably be something along those same lines. I expected that the council would run that.
But just respond. We've had the case where they've had that application process and it's been clearly cherry picked. And I think it's the community that they're going to be paying a lot of money. And I think the community should nominate their own representatives, and everyone's can be nominated at that meeting and select from the public to turn up if they're interested. That's what I'd suggest.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, thank you. The recommendation is recommended that the committee resolve to receive and note the verbal report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cole, seconder? Okay, Representative Bradley. Okay. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That's unanimous. We'll move on to 9.5. Community members to be included in communications to a suitable level. Again, Jodie's going to speak to that.
Yeah, so I'd love a lot more communication about what's going on, like this progress report that we get before the meetings is great. I guess I'd like that a bit more frequently as to what's happening and the potential challenges. So as a representative on this committee, like when I do get asked questions by the community, I don't often have a great answer, and I know I can go and ask if something needs to be asked, but it'd be nice just to have a bit more knowledge on sort of where we're at and the next steps right there and then, really. Yeah, that was it. Just a bit more communication at the right level for our involvement.
Thanks, Jodie. Yes. Oh.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Jodie, hear what you're saying. There is in the interim the opportunity for community members to access our publicly presented papers to Operations Committee. Up until the end of last year, that was, I think, 10 meetings a year with a project status report for Westport Flood Protection Scheme project included in those papers. I think Ops Committee's meeting a little bit less frequently this year at 5 meetings, but those meeting papers, that agenda includes a project status report in each one.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. So you can point me in the direction of that.
Yeah, they're on the council's website under meetings and agendas. And if you look for Operations Committee, you'll find them in there.
Yeah, because I did have a look, but looking in the wrong direction.
Ask me, I'll show you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, are there any questions for Jodie? Okay. Thank you. So the recommendation, it's recommended that the committee resolve to receive and note the verbal report. Have a mover? Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Cole. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Cole. Is there any further discussion? Okay, thank you. We'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Paul? Okay, thank you. Okay. That's the end of our agenda. I'd just like to thank everybody. Oh, sorry, Daryl.
I just do a couple of follow-ups from what
Sure.
I heard, just to make sure that we're tidy here in closing the meeting. So firstly, I just want to note the motion that was passed regarding the community representatives and when they should be appointed, as per the motion that was carried. And I just advise that I think it's prudent to update the terms of reference for this committee to include that, encapsulate it and record it. And there is one other matter, I think, for the terms of reference as well. So the way it works is the mayor or the chair is in the seat of the chair of this committee for 12 months, which is a calendar year. And then for the next 12 months, it then swaps to the other. The terms of reference is actually silent on the deputy chair, but it has been customary that the alternate mayor or chair of those two gentlemen is the deputy when they're not the chair of this committee. So I think we'll just tidy that up as well. I think that would be a good thing to do. And finally, just want to really note that we are hearing from this meeting the need to probably up our communications, our our comms and information flows into here. And we're probably at a time where we can start doing that, because up until now, there's been a lot of geotech and survey and all that sort of investigations, but we're at probably at a time now where we're starting to needing to engage a lot more, because there are going to be some decisions coming up this year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks. Look, my agenda papers include heading general business. That might be a mistake, but I did assume that it would be an opportunity for some general business, general questions. I'm here representing.
Councillor, it didn't, but let's do it anyway.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm here representing a community that's under a huge rating pressure at the moment. And I would be very keen as one of their representatives to get an idea from regional council, you know, when they're going to perhaps strike their rate for this coming year and what level it will be. That information would help me when I go back to my community who are under huge rating pressure at the moment. I think everyone from Bulla understands that we could have a net debt northwards of $150 million in no time at all. And this is all adding to it, particularly in regard to what I indicated earlier, that I believe the costs will either escalate or the work will be reduced. I'm not sure what decision you guys will make. But yeah, so I'd really like to have an idea, maybe when council are intending to strike the rate for next year and what's the likely level.
Daryl, would you like to respond to that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, in the previous paper, you just struck the rate for the maintenance anyway. Yeah. So that deals with the maintenance rate. In terms of the capital part of the flood scheme, I'll just explain how this works. So the total project budget that was awarded by government and approved by regional council is 25.8 million. Thanks, Chantel. 25.8 million, made up of 15.6 government contribution and 10.2 local share. The way that I've managed to negotiate it, which is incredibly advantageous to ratepayers, is that the government share on all those things the government said they'll pay for can be expended first, i.e. the 15.6 million, before we actually have to raise a loan and start any repayments of the 10.2 million for the local share. And so that's where we sit at the moment. And we're certainly still inside the 15.6 million expenditure from government, and routinely, you know, on a monthly basis, just about now, we're presenting the invoices to government for payment of that money. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. I think Councillor Reynolds and then Representative Bradley.
Yeah, I meet with a lot of ratepayers and they've got lots of questions because they never had any answers over a long period of time. I have lots of questions here I'd like to ask at this meeting, but may not be appropriate. So I just hand them to regional council and hope to get an answer within 20 working days.
I think you should hand those to Daryl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Representative Bradley.
Yes, I want to reiterate Councillor Rutherford's concerns, because I had noted before I came to the meeting a timeline that we can establish or can expect a timeline for setting of the rates in relation to capital works and the first payment that ratepayers will make in regard to that. And the second question is, will we be debating the philosophy behind setting the rates? For example, how and why will we incorporate ratepayers, you know, or we just locally affected ratepayers, for example, which is the main issue.
Thank you, Daryl.
Firstly, I think there's two things there. Firstly, it's my prediction that we're at least 12 months away before we go anywhere near needing to raise a loan for even part of the 10.2. So we're at least 12 months away. So you've got another whole year before that. That won't be sprung on you anytime soon. I can assure you of that. The second thing is we will bring back and return to the matter of the potential for a differential rating for the capital works. and ongoing maintenance. That will be run as part of West Coast Regional Council's long-term plan process, which will open for public consultation in around March, April next year. But we will be in touch and briefing this committee leading up to that time around what are the options for perhaps a more fairer rating and over what area that might take place.
Thank you, Derek. Is there any other general business? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so given that, we'll close the meeting and thank you again for everybody who came and contributed. We'll leave it to Alan to write it up in a nice little article for us, and we'll